At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.
Please, if you're not talking, can you mute ourselves? All right, we're on. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, once again, discussion on BBI. As usual, we're here again. So we are live now. So Dennis, you can share it. I don't know if you can see it now.
Okay, I'm going to a page to find it. I'm not getting the notification, but sometimes it takes some time. I think it's normal, it does that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us here today. This is again another discussion on BBI and diaspora, because as diaspora, we feel neglected. And I know somebody told me, so what's going to happen with all this discussion? Because we've been discussing this for the last 3 or 4 weeks now. So what is the way forward? So today we're also going to just discuss the way forward, because this is 4 weeks now since we started discussing this topic. So we're also going to discuss the way forward. What do we do from now? How do we make sure that our complaint or our whatever we want to see in the BBI diaspora gets to the right people, the right place? So today, again, I'm just going to introduce my guests, my panelists today. I have Moses Langat. Moses Langat is always part of us because Moses Langat is part of KDA, Kenya Diaspora Alliance. So Moses Langat is always with us because he's the assistant chair of KDA. And then we also have John Kanyaru. John Kanyaru is also the chair of KDA. And because this program is actually brought to you by KDA and Kifua, which is Kenyans in France Umbrella Association. So that's why we always have Langat here with us and John Kanyaru, because John is the chair of KDA. And then we also have with us today a special guest. We have Phil Mutua, all the way from the UK, Phil Mutua. Thank you very much, Phil, for joining us today. We also have Balozi Omwega, all the way from America. So thank you very much, Balozi, as well, for joining us today. We also have all the way from Netherlands. We have Abeka Salmin Abdallah. We also have Abeka all the way from Netherlands. We are supposed to have somebody as well from Switzerland, because this is diaspora. I think he's having problems with joining in, because we all know technology is hard, so we can't blame him for finding it difficult. So he's all the way from Switzerland. And we're also going to be joined by Weldon. Weldon also is part of Kifua, which is Kenyans in France Umbrella Association. Weldon is going to join us later. And also we have a very special guest today, all the way from Kenya, Hassan Hamed, who we all know very, very, very well, okay? And they're all going to introduce themselves just shortly, guys, very, very short, less than a minute, seconds to introduce yourselves. Thank you. So I'll start on my left with John Kanyaru, please.
Thank you, Lydia. As she has said, my name is John Kanyaru, a Kenyan residing in the United Kingdom, from Kenya in the county of Nakuru, Njoro. And in UK, I'm the chair of Kenya Diaspora Alliance, UK chapter. And I'm happy when we are invited to discuss about the BBI, because once the document goes through, it will affect us in the diaspora. I think my questions and discussion have always been about diaspora, is there for us in diaspora. And I'm happy that we have a lawyer and former chairman of IEBC. I think he will be able to shed more light, because I'm sure he has read the document probably at length. So I am happy to participate in today's discussion. And thank you very much for inviting me, Lydia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll go to Dennis Conseil. Dennis from France. Dennis, do we have you?
Sorry, I was muted. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. My name is Dennis. I'm always here with Lydia Olet. I'm the Secretary General of the Kenyans in France Umbrella Association in France. And since the beginning of this discussion, we've been talking about BBI. We didn't make any proposition to the BBI itself, but of course we were following it. We tried to find a way on how to submit our thoughts into the document, but unfortunately, it was very difficult for us because by then we were not organized. We didn't even know how to go about all that. But later we were confronted by complaints from the people who say they forwarded their propositions, but their propositions were not put into account. And we've talked so many times about how the BBI actually is not putting into considerations the needs of Kenyans who are living in diaspora. And I'm so happy today to have to be here in presence of Aliasen, who is a constitutional expert. He took part in the making of the current constitution, and after that, he was the chair of the Electoral Commission in Kenya. And there is no better person who can discuss the things that we are trying to understand than him. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward for a fruitful discussion and finding some answers, and also maybe chatting a way forward for the diaspora community. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Okay, so I'll go again back to my left. And I don't know, Mudhoni. Mudhoni, are you in a position to introduce yourself? We'll be happy to hear that, Mudhoni. Thank you.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. I'm not quite sure to say about myself, but to say thank you so much for inviting me. I certainly appreciate the great consideration from Bwana Chairman Isaac Hassan. I always call him Bwana Chairman because to me, it's not so much about what you, how, if you're actually in the role, but, do you still have that leadership and did you exhibit that leadership? So I'm excited to hear about this conversation. Looking forward to hearing if we can maybe move the needle on the diaspora policy, which also includes diaspora access to voting. And that was actually done back we wrote it in 2012, and 2014 it was signed and put in law. Hopefully this whole BBI process can be a part of moving that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mudhoni. Okay, I'll go to Alois. Alois, please. Sorry, unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Alois Philip Muya. I'm a PhD student here, studying criminology. Excited today again to always discuss about BBIs, especially the confusion this document has caused to us in diaspora, and the realization that we becoming a very neglected group by the large Kenyan political scene and the lawmakers. I see we have people who have the expertise in this area, so that's good. I'm looking forward to hear what people can say. And again, I must say the group is doing well, keeping these discussions going forward. So it's nice to see people are starting to listen. And that, looking forward to a good discussion today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I also have Moses Langat. Moses Langat, if you...
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. I'm a mainstay, as you rightly said in the beginning. Today, I'm in a slightly noisy place, but I believe you can hear me.
Yeah.
I am based in the UK, in London, and as you said, I deputize John Kanyaru in the Kenya Diaspora Alliance UK chapter, and I work in London at the Royal Botanic Gardens. So I'm pleased today that we are here with the chairman, who will really help us, particularly to understand why this Kenyan government has never taken us seriously in ensuring that our votes matter when we go in to select president, governors, or elect president, governors, and the rest of the people. So I'm going to be here, Lydia, and I'm going to be mainly on the background today. So I'm not going to be talking much, but to be throwing questions so that we can allow the new people who are here today, like Modoni, Alois, and Isaac, to be able to lead. Thank you so much, and I am thoroughly impressed with the panelists doing that today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Moses Langat. And now we're going to go to Netherlands. So we're going to go to Abeka. Please just introduce yourself, please.
Thank you again, Lydia, for the invite, and also to join fellow Kenyans in this discussion. As you have said, well, I'm Abeka Abdallah, journalist by profession, but I'm based here in the Netherlands, and I'm working in the media. And I'm happy to be here today, as everyone has said. It's a pleasure to have former chair, Isaac Hassan, and I will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Isaac. And it's a pleasure to listen to him and follow what much is happening back in the ground, especially after being the chair of the Electoral Commission years back. So with further ado, I thank everyone for listening to me, and looking forward to a very interactive discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll go back to America again, to Balozi Omwega. Balozi Omwega, I know we couldn't see him because he was driving, but he can talk. So thank you, Balozi.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for the welcome. A very good morning in the United States, a good evening in Europe, and a good evening in Kenya. My name is Balozi Walter Omwega from Kitutu Masaba constituency, formerly George Anyona's constituency, and I double up as a Kenyan resident and also a diasporian at the same time, and extremely excited that we can dialogue. This is a conversation whose time is way overdue. And, you know, I am a strong believer that if we have to build a Kenya for posterity, we cannot ignore the 48 county, which is the diaspora county. So the conveners of this dialogue, Asante Sana, I'm very excited to be with you here today. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Balozi. Now I'm going to go to Kenya now. I think I've introduced everybody else. Everybody else have introduced themselves, apart from our Mkubwa today, our special guest, Hassan Hamid. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for inviting to join this very important meeting. I am not Mkubwa, I'm an ordinary citizen now. I was the chairman of the Electoral Commission before the handshake. And I think the BBI and the handshake, I think has come at a very good time. I believe if it had come even earlier after the 2013 elections, maybe we'll have gone very far as a country now. Because we are talking about inclusivity and divisive elections. And sometimes you just blame the commissioners or the electoral commission or the election body when we have other issues that actually make the elections more divisive and very difficult as a nation. But now I'm also in a way also a diaspora. Since leaving IBC, I have been engaged in election consultancy with the UN. I was in Somalia, Mogadishu, and then I spent another 1.5 years in Afghanistan with the Electoral Commission there. And I have met quite a number of Kenyans, both in Kabul and also in Mogadishu, especially the Kenyans who are working for the UN. And I think Kenyans in diaspora everywhere have the same concerns and the same issues that they raise. So now I have joined them, and I think I want to just give you my own assessment. I am not in office, so I can't really talk about what IBC is going to do for the diaspora and the diaspora voting. From time to time, I speak with the chairman, the Chapukati, just to check on him and how he's still holding the hot seat. But I think as a commission, they have also an obligation to inform the diaspora how the diaspora is going to get engaged in the elections. During my time in office, I have engaged with many Kenyans in the diaspora, and some of you, I still have your contacts, and we still are in touch, whether it's USA or UK or Europe or other parts of the world. And Mudoni, I'm very happy to hear your voice. Mudoni actually did her master's in US, but she came to do her research project in Kenya, and she was working with IEBC. And I think her interest in elections and diaspora and conflict management is very important. So as during my time, I think we engaged with you and we had agreed with you that we will allow you to vote for presidential elections and for national referendums. But I can now tell you that there was no political goodwill, both from the Prime Minister and from the President at the time, to allow the diaspora to actually vote. There was still a concern that this is an unknown quantity, and so they could maybe twist the election or turn the election results. So I want to say that you have to make sure that even as we engage, you actually have the political goodwill from the leadership of the country on your voting. But at the time, we allowed you to vote in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Burundi. And I think in the last election in 2017, IBC included now South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, I think in the African continent. So now it is just to expand that, and perhaps with the use of technology, maybe even make it much more inclusive to all the diaspora. I think that's my introduction. Okay. And if I could go maybe to the BBI, unless leader, you advise me otherwise. I want to also give my own view about the BBI report.
Okay, I'll let, because I just want Moses Langat to come in first and just give us a brief introduction of today's topic and the document as well, because in the UK around March, we actually, as a KDA, and we have our chair and our assistant chair here today, KDA, we actually had a document written and sent to Kenya. And so before we start with the discussion today, I just want Moses Langat to come in and give us a little brief of our discussion today. Thank you, Langat.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you for giving me this opportunity fairly early on after Ishak Hassan has introduced himself. Yes, we, perhaps to fill him in, we had gone around the UK and collected views under the stewardship of John, who is here with us today. And we asked Kenyans to give us views. And surprisingly, we didn't hear anything about participating in the elections. I believe this was because it had been captured in the diaspora policy, which Modoni did mention. And we didn't include that when we were sending our proposals to the BBI team. But I believe what's very important is to hear from Isaac whether he has seen anything of the sort in the proposals, and whether there's goodwill, which of course may have changed. Of course, having had and having known, we really don't need to hear. We know that there was no goodwill coming from the political class at the time, and whether this is going to change after these BBI proposals. Of course, also we've seen some change happening in Kenya. We don't know whether this is because of COVID-19 pandemic, where the reggae seems to have been paused, or maybe consensus is now being allowed, and maybe we are being heard from the UK. And in that case, this gives us more impetus to be able to try and push and consolidate our views. And I think diaspora voting is going to be very important when we prepare a document to submit. So yes, Lydia, we did send our proposals. They were mainly on inclusivity, divisive elections, which we were saying it needed to be cleaned. And also maybe for Isaac, the next thing he needs to mention really to us, for us to understand in the diaspora, and also for people in Kenya, is we have had different versions. What is really happening? How will the commissioners be appointed? And whether he thinks that is better. So that's the position, Lydia, for now from me.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dennis, did you want to add on to something before we can continue?
Yes, because the topic anyway is in BBI. I think there are a lot of things that we could say that were ignored by the people who are working on BBI. And mainly, it's not just the matters that concern the diaspora. Also, there are some groups back at home who are complaining that some of their views, some of their propositions were not put into considerations by the team. And when we began this conversation, I was arguing that maybe BBI was just focused on two individuals and all that. But in the beginning, there was this goodwill because the country so much needed some sort of a ceasefire. If you remember, just before the handshake, the economy of the country was plunging, of course, because of, sorry, I'm beginning to mix French and English, because of demonstrations and especially that which was led by Miguna. So handshake came at the right time, where we were thinking maybe we should find a way where these elections, where we can handle elections and there is no division and anxiety during and just after elections. And the results of that, actually, I think it doesn't capture the aspirations of most of us, because we were expecting this document to deal mainly on the divisive elections and to seal the loopholes that were left by the previous constitution. But if I say loopholes, I'm not a lawyer, but I can't say specifically if there were loopholes in the 2010 constitution that could be sealed by BBI concerning Kenya's foreign policy. Because Kenya, to me, in terms of foreign policy, it's very difficult to say anything concrete, because the country have not shown will to stand by the diaspora for a very long time. I complained also one time that the president have come to France 2 times and he has not have time for us. The deputy president also, he came, but he didn't even bother to try and see if we could have a conversation as Kenyans. And the embassy is also in in these countries, concerned countries in the UK and in France, I think they have a role also to play to put us in touch with governments back at home, because the issues which were given, especially by the team in the UK, was touched on us also. If those, even like 50% of those propositions would be captured, or maybe some sort of explanation be sent back to us why this document could not be put into consideration, at least we would have that feeling of sense of belonging, having participated in the process of changing the constitution. We don't take the changing of constitution as lightly as maybe most of the people would want us to, because we know it's going to affect our lives here and abroad, and one day we would want to go back home. So I'm hoping that some of these questions will be answered during the talk, because for me now, they are only questions and no more answers. Back to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dennis. Okay, when we say question, can the questions be short? Because if it's too many, if it's a very long question, I don't think, Hassan, I'd like to say Mkubwa, I said I shouldn't call him that, but I don't think he'll be able to answer all that. So it has to be really, really short. And we also have somebody who is asking about, can postal voting work in Kenya? Can postal voting work in Kenya? And somebody also said, okay, yeah, this is a great discussion, but next time invite us to provide you with the real issues on the ground. Just Johnston K. Kotut. Yeah, that's why I said a lot of people are asking to come and give us the information, but we also have to check who is coming on. Now, I'll give this platform first to Hamid to answer some few questions before we can start again, because I'm sure. So Hamid, please.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I think about the BBI, I think what's going on now is probably just a little lull before we move to the stage of collecting signatures. I think there's no harm if actually the political leadership tries to build consensus as much as possible before we go for a referendum. Because if you remember, the 2005 referendum was very divisive, the orange and the banana referendum, and it actually was a prelude to 2007 election violence. We carried forward all the negatives from the 2005 referendum. So I think as a country, we need to avoid going back to that experience of the 2005 referendum, where actually the government lost the referendum. And so, yeah, in terms of where we are at now, I think maybe the political leadership is trying to build consensus, and also they have to publish the report and the draft bills, which is going to form part of the BBI, so that the Kenyan people know what they're going to vote on. And there should be actually some sort of civic education to the public about what is contained in the BBI report. On the issue of, I think, my own view is that it's a good document, it's a good report. I don't agree with the report on IEBC, on the commissioners, how to appoint them. And I will give you my reasons why. But I think on the specific issues, I think they have captured something on the diaspora. They say that there's little doubt about the value of the Kenyans in diaspora. That's a very strong statement in the report, affirming the importance and the value of Kenyans in the diaspora. And they also talk about how to protect Kenyans in the diaspora who also hold dual nationality. If you remember, our sister from New York, Mwende Muzi, was appointed ambassador to South Korea, but up to now she's yet to report because Parliament made a conditional approval of her appointment to say that she must renounce her other citizenship. And I think what I see in this report now is that they are saying that will not apply to the Kenyans in the diaspora. You can only demand for someone to renounce the dual nationality if he is going to join the military or the defense forces. But the rest, I think they have said is going to be, you can keep your dual nationality, which I think is a very important gain for the diaspora. But when you look at the other aspects of the report, for example, in the chapter on representations in Parliament, in the National Assembly, in the Senate, in the county assemblies, there's a lot of talk about inclusivity and the gender equality, giving women more slots in the Senate and in the National Assembly. But you don't see any mention of members of the diaspora getting an opportunity to also actually be nominated to these elective, to these positions. In other countries, we know, for example, in Tunisia, in DRC Congo, in Cameroon, they actually allow people in the diaspora to be elected and nominated to sit in Parliament and the Senate. So I think there is the proposal to increase the number of seats in Parliament by a certain number, which is going to be increased by through party list, and it will be given to women. I think this is where the diaspora can find a way to go in and push for at least one man, one woman from the diaspora to also be nominated in that in the Senate, in the National Assembly, and in all the 47 county assemblies. Now, when it comes to elections, I think with the use of technology, COVID-19 has now shown us that we can actually run business and government on technology. I know I did some work, I'm still doing some work with the UN, UNDP Somalia and UNDP Afghanistan, and a lot of the staff are working from home. We use a lot of Zoom, Blue Jeans, Teams, and many other apps which are available. So actually the use of technology has increased during the COVID, and even the government is also using technology in this work. So I think there must be perhaps a specific election provision in the election law to require IEBC now to employ technology to allow the diaspora to fully participate in the elections, whether it is through electronic voting or internet voting. I know Chepukati was in Estonia some few months ago, where they had gone to study how they do internet voting. The question asked by about postal voting. I think postal voting is one method of actually allowing diaspora to vote. The question is, what level of trust do you put in postal voting? It is very difficult to run an honest election in a dishonest society. And as long as we have this mistrust and suspicion, I think whether it is postal voting or early voting, we have to first cure our problems of trust before we can allow this. But as a principle, I think early voting, postal voting is something actually which we should be able to encourage, and that will also increase the turnout and voter participation in the elections. But of course, we know now what's happening in the USA. Mail-in voting and ballots from the postal voting is becoming a huge issue of contention in the elections. Now, when it comes to appointment of commissioners, I've had this debate with the Prime Minister even before when I was in office. I think he has always supported the IPPG model of appointing commissioners, where political parties nominate their commissioners in proportion to their strength in parliament. And that is has both merits and demerits. It is very likely that appointees by political parties to the commission, now the commissioners will no longer have to pretend to be independent. They will actually now be political party agents in the commission. And the danger that there will be a stalemate or sabotage within the commission will actually increase. Right now, commissioners are independently appointed and they are supposed to be independent and not report to political parties or take instructions from them. But this, I think, proposal is not very good. We have to think much more carefully about it. For me, I think the bigger issue in the commission is actually to solve the issue of the two centers of power in the commission: the chairman of the commission and the CEO of the commission, who's the head of the management, is the head of the secretariat and the accounting officer. So there's actually a power there. The chairman is in charge of the policy oversight and providing leadership. But there's actually much more power which is given to the CEO. And there's always this clash between the two, especially if there's no trust between them. And I think I want to say that we could go for the Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone examples where they have combined the chairman and the CEO. They have in one office. So actually there's no CEO. The chairman is the chief executive. So there's one head. There's one center of power where you can actually hold that person accountable. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Abeka, would you want to add on to what
No, thanks, leader. I'd just like to
Hassan said, or ask a question actually, or give your views?
No, I just want to maybe give my views on what Hassan has said and also ask him a few questions based on what he said. He can, or others can also contribute. He talked about political goodwill and everybody said the handshake and all that. But I hold a different view when we look at our elections and the political goodwill. I realize that most of the legislations or constitutional changes we do, they're based to patch the egos of politicians, not mostly to make the country move forward. And we have seen it with what is happening. For example, if you look at BBI, as much as we want to say it's a talk between the two leaders, they come together and they want to solve a problem. But the first question I would like to ask Hassan, because he has been into and is doing it right now, what brings the divisive elections in Kenya, them against us? And because if you look at it, it's a creation of the politicians most of the time. Right now, when there are no elections, where there are no politics going around, we are all Kenyans. But the moment there are elections, that's when we start to realize they are them, they are this and that and that. And you will realize that during electioneering period, this kind of cases always appear. Either there is a constitutional change which is going to be done. I don't know whether we still remember Hassan must go when his office was to be disbanded by some other side of the political divide. And you see, these kind of things kind of create an enmity between the electorates and the constitutional office holders. Number two, he mentioned about the referendum and civic education. I'm just wondering whether there will be enough time for civic education and whether there will be also a political goodwill from the people doing, because even if you look at the whole process of BBI, if you look at the report, I've been reading through it, you realize that, okay, it's assumption that Kenyans were consulted and there was public participation, but you are wondering, During rallies, they take these rallies to where the people are. But when there is concern and constitutional changes which require people to be involved, they do them either in posh hotels, and hence the Wanjiku is being closed out. Now, my last question to him also is about the appointment of the IEBC or the electoral commissioners, the best way to appoint them. Because if we look at the IPPG, it has been, there is a political alienation happening. So depending on the strength, and we know how politicians are always sly and schemers. I think I will be brief so that others can also contribute on some.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Abeka. And I'll go to Balozi now, Balozi Omwega. We'll take more questions or comments or your views.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I don't know whether I'm clear now.
Yes, you are.
I want to also take opportunity to really commend the brief from Chairman Isaac Hassan. Your work was exemplary, and we want to thank you for your service. For me, what I continue to wrestle with is the foundation in which our country is laying on or built on. When Chairman Isaac Hassan talks about goodwill, divisive election, contentious elections, centers of power, the big question that I ask myself is that when you are given the position to offer service, Chairman Isaac, what is the foundation that are we putting our country on? If we can take a case study or an example from the Constitution of the United States, which Kenya borrows a lot from, this other country's constitution, which was drafted in 1789, I believe. It has only been amended 27 times. Then when we look at our constitution, the new constitution of 2010, this is the second time we're trying to have it amended. Then the question is, are we building or are we creating a constitution that is going to be for posterity, or are we trying to amend the constitution to satisfy our the political elites' wishes and demands? Then the next question is, if we say that the BBI is addressing such and such an issue, and we're talking about the pastoralist community, the agricultural community, then we are leaving out the diaspora. Mm-hmm. Yet we are trying to build a Kenya that will go beyond 2060, whereby technology, nanotechnology, whereby we are talking about nuclear technology, whereby we are talking about how Kenya is going to play an integral role in becoming the next Silicon hub. Where are we taking our country when we are going actually back in drafting, amending a constitution to fit our ethnic alignment? That is the aspect that I'm struggling with, and I still don't find answers. And when we talk about the diaspora engagement, I believe the diaspora plays a very integral role in harmonizing that, whereby we want to make Kenya a global village. And when we don't talk about the diaspora as the 48th constituency, for me, I truly feel that we are missing the bus. I yield my time, Madam Lydia.
Thank you very much for that, Balozi. Hamed, I'll give you time to answer some of the questions, but before that, I'll go to John Kanyaru. John Kanyaru, please.
Thank you, Lydia, for giving me an opportunity. Mine is, first of all, to thank Ahmed Isaac, the chairman, for giving that brief. And to take on one aspect that you have mentioned about the document, the BBI document, having, or rather identifying that it has a value for diaspora. We have BBI draft 1 and BBI draft 2, which was launched at Bomas recently. And when I looked at the original, the BBI 1, and page 9 had mentioned about diaspora and allowing them to participate in elective opportunity and policy level, giving the example that you have just mentioned about Mwenda Mwinzi. The much later BBI, if you looked at it very carefully, that paragraph has been removed and it is not there unless I'm reading another BBI. And we have tried to figure out why that particular clause is non-existent, and maybe we are reading the wrong BBI, but just to alert you, in the second BBI, it is not there. I appreciate what we had required, or rather the Kenyans in diaspora had wanted, is to have a document that recognizes them and values them. When you look at the BBI report, mostly it is talking about diaspora remittances and creating a diaspora desk in our local bank in Kenya. Anyway, where that one, to me, it is not something that should be on the BBI document, because currently Kenyans in diaspora, they can still have diaspora bank desk in the bank. What we were looking is something which is more inclusive. One, diaspora has overtaken coffee and tourism in terms of bringing resources back to Kenya. And as a country that is looking forward to expand that resource base to build our nation, we had proposed even having a ministry of diaspora akin to Philippines, where we will have a whole ministry, because what we have currently, and that has been repeated several times, is that we have a diaspora desk at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We were looking for a situation whereby we can have at least a ministry, or if it goes lower, we be included at the policy level by having in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs a PS in charge of diaspora. That will show that the diaspora are being looked into in a more critical way. Finally, about the appointive position, we had actually asked for diaspora to be considered as a special interest group, much the same as disabled, women, and other sectors, so that when there is an appointment, or rather a nomination in Parliament and Senate, we can have a representation, because it is not fair on diaspora, and they don't feel so, when we have a whole population who estimated to be 3 million, with a national contribution of to the tune of 280 billion, not even having a representative in Parliament and other policy-making body. So diaspora are crying to be included so that we can participate in building our nation. Now, the final question is, we have already had in the newspaper, and I hope this is not the case, that what is in the BBI has been cast in stone. There is no adding a full stop or a comma. How can we go ahead and have our issues included? Because that kind of message of saying no addition, churches are crying, diaspora are crying, pastoralists, I think the other day they had their commas and full stop included. How can we have the diaspora issues included so that we have a document that has support from even diaspora and other Kenyans who feel left out? Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I think you said that we need to be included so we can build our nation. But I think we are building our nation regardless with our remittance, because that's what seems to interest our nation, Kenya, when it comes to diaspora. Anyway, that is somebody's comment, not actually mine. Well, somebody said BBI is complicated. Someone sent me a different document. There are so many documents in regards to BBI. And this is somebody who lives in Belgium. This is someone from Belgium, say they will not read the diaspora document anymore. It's so boring because there's nothing there for them. And we have a lot of questions, but we'll take questions later. For now, I want to go to Alois first. Or let me, before going to Alois, in fact, let me give Hamid an opportunity again to answer some questions before we can move on. Chairman.
Well, I want to first make it very clear that I don't speak for the government.
Yeah.
I'm not in government anymore. I am a former chairman. So I'm just giving you my own views now as a private citizen. So there is a argument that the BBI report is different, and that what is being published or what was published in Bomas is different from what was launched. If whether that is true or not, I cannot myself say. What I read is the one that was released to the president in Kisii and the prime minister. So I'm using that document as my basis. But the bottom line is that they are going to publish a draft bill. What people are going to vote for is not the BBI report. It will be a document which is going to explain which part of the constitution we're going to amend and what you're going to say. So it will be, even if now there's confusion about what the report is saying about these issues, at the time they're going to publish the draft bills, it will be very clear what is actually the intention of BBI. So I think that's something which we want to be very clear about. Now, Balozi, thank you very much for your kind words. I think I want to say that serving in the country in the elections is a very good thing. You serve your country. But unfortunately, the Electoral Commission, like, as I said before, has been turned into a graveyard of reputation and careers. And we have to find a way of seeing how this is not going to happen to other commissioners. In terms of the inclusivity of the elections, and I started by saying that if this BBI report and the handshake came in 2013 after the elections, maybe we'll have gone very far as a country. And maybe I'll still be the chairman, or I'll have just left office in 2017. But the issue of inclusivity of elections is something which you cannot ignore. We are not America, we are not UK, we are not an established democracy. We are a developing country, we are a tribal country. We cannot ignore our tribe, our ethnicity. This is part of our history and our culture. We can't avoid that. Two, there is also allied consensus. The big tribes have got their big boys who are in charge of them, whether it is Raila on one side, who has got 40% of the country, whether it is Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto. You can't ignore their influence and power in the country in terms of their support base. And so if they come together and agree that let's have a much more expanded executive where we have more inclusivity in the positions, and because the current system where winner takes all does not encourage concession of defeat. No one is going to accept to be defeated if he has got 40% of the people or of the votes. You can't ignore or wish away that person. And I think Raila Odinga has proved that to everybody. Just to give Ambassador a classic example, I was in Afghanistan last year. I was I was nominated by the UN to join the Electoral Commission and advise them on when they were conducting election for president. And after the election of the president, the incumbent Ashraf Ghani got 50.68%. And his second runner-up was 39.4%, Abdullah. And of course, he refused to concede defeat. And he went ahead to actually swear himself in as the president. And the country was divided, just like Kenya was. And the Americans came in and forced them to actually sign a political agreement where Ashraf Ghani took 60% of power, executive power, and the other guy got 40% in terms of the sharing of government. So we can't run away from that issue. And I think in terms of BBI or this a new draft constitution coming up with a more inclusive or expanded or a pro-box presidency, as Mutahi Gunyi will call it, I think it's not a bad idea. And so it's something which is worth supporting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So did I hear from you that it's the BBI is actually worth supporting? Okay.
I make no comment.
No comment. Okay, you pass on that one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, I'll go to Phil. Phil, please.
Can you hear me? Thanks, Lydia.
Yeah.
I think I'll start by saying I make the comment, BBI is not worth supporting. Let's move from.
Well, that's your view. That's your view, Phil. That's your view. Go on.
We can sit here and discuss the BBI, how it might have some small aspects which are good. Probably there's I'll consider there's about 30% of some things, including the World Development Fund. That's a good idea. And we've seen how those things can work. Like when we involve funds like that, they can do it well, like they've done with the MPs when they gave the MPs some money. But having said that, let's talk about inclusivity. The diaspora is so big to be given a line recognizing their worth in the old document. We recognize diaspora is a good or the important aspect of our society. That's it. So we've known we're an important part of that society for a very long time. So if you just sit there and tell us, okay, so you expect us to buy into that? So that, having said that, therefore, we can conclude we are not included in that document. But the reality we are facing is the BBI is going to go ahead. They are going to collect signatures. Perhaps they are even going to pass it. What recourse do we have afterwards? We need to start looking at those aspects. And I don't even think there's any lawsuit at the moment pending for BBI. It seems, and if you talk with a lot of people on the ground, it might sail through, to be honest. So we need to start looking at ourselves like, okay, we have a government which has kind of neglected us and ignored us. I remember there's a time Uhuru was in South Africa and he said how he intends to have the diaspora voting, how he intends to engage the diaspora in the affairs of running the country. But we've seen he's coming to the end of the term and that has nothing happened. So how do we start engaging with the Kenyan government? Within the constraints of the constitution or otherwise? How do we start working with them? The other thing is and I think when Omega said, what does our constitution show about Kenyans? What value does our constitution say? Because constitution should encapsulate or should they bring out the values of people in that society? The current constitution does not bring the value of Kenyans. If you look at it, there's no value at all. What does it talk about as Kenyans? Is there anything that unites us other than saying, let's expand our executive that we don't have to fight about elections or we don't have to refuse defeat, concede defeat? And I think when Isaac said, Kenyans don't trust people. And I think this document brings the untrustworthy of Kenyans. If a Kenyan can lose an election and clearly say you've won the election, which numbers say you've lost, and then we go ahead and include that concept of refusing to win an election in a document, just to capture that? What kind of society are we becoming? So my view is, perhaps if this document can be rejected somehow miraculously, then maybe people can sit down and realize, okay, can we, because the truth is the 2010 constitution needs to be amended some things, but the process that we arrived at this document is wrong. So I don't know whether the process was right, because I'm not a lawyer, but I do feel Kenyans really did not ask for it, because I can't remember any Kenyans doing kamukujis or going for what we saw in 1992 or towards the 2010 election happening. We didn't see Kenyans going on the streets to demand the constitution to be changed. And whoever demanded the constitution to be changed counted himself and said, it's inclusive because my name and my part of grievances will be addressed on this. So the document is not inclusive at all. I think those are just my comments, sorry.
So would you say that BBI, that document actually does not represent the views of millions in Kenya?
It does not represent the views of the diaspora. It does not represent the views of the people who are not on the table, actually.
Okay.
Because some of the pastoral communities going to Raila and to one of the principals, and after some time they said, "Oh, now we are included." So should we just everybody be going to this place and discussing someone to be included, or what happens? But that's where we are, and that's the Kenya we have. Someone said we are in a very untrustworthy society. So I guess we just need to start figuring out what to do. Thank you.
Last time when we had the discussion and we watched the video from John Say, and the video actually, he mentioned it, that when they did the BBI, the first BBI, I'm just saying that because of people saying there's so many documents, which is true, because when they say that, John Say said, when they did the first document, he was there, but the second time when they brought them to sign the second document, there was a lot of things that were removed. So he was asking, if you remove something, you have to replace it with something else. They did not tell them what was replaced. All they told them is trust us and sign the document. But later they found out that word trust does not exist. So that is what we watched last time, and not my words, by the way. I always say I'm not a politician, I'm just giving a platform. Okay, so I'll go to, I can see Abeka with his hands. Abeka wants to say something. But Abeka, before I come to you, can I please go to Mudhoni, please? If Mudhoni is there, Mudhoni, do you want to say something? Do you want to contribute or?
Yeah, sure. I take it you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So what I find interesting is that we are having the same conversation that we had in 2012 at the time that we were writing the diaspora policy. The same concerns, the dismissiveness of government, the lack of inclusivity of the diaspora, the fact that we are reduced to just our remittance dollars. And at the time we raised the question that if our remittance dollars are so important to you that you have to talk about them, then why are you not engaging with us in a meaningful fashion? Why are we not getting respect, for example? Just as basic human beings, when we show up in Kenya, we have to go at the airport at immigration, we have to go through additional processes that are sometimes dehumanizing, you know, where I actually may feel better when I'm coming back into the United States, where for all intents and purposes, I'm a foreigner. Yes, you know, I'm here legally and all of that, but I actually have a better time checking into a foreign country than I have checking into my home country. But that's just to give you a brief overview of sort of what the tone was. And one of the things that came to light, and this may be instrumental or maybe interesting, an interesting observation. One of the things that came to light was that the reason we even had a diaspora policy to begin with was that the major IFIs, the international financial institutions, World Bank, IMF, and everyone else in between, had sat down and decided based on the numbers that diasporas for countries, especially countries in Africa, should be considered a part of the economic wheelhouse and social wheelhouse and political wheelhouse. In other words, that countries could no longer come to the IMF and World Bank and ask to be loaned money and or ask, you know, for any kind of funding And during a review, if it became clear that the diaspora was not engaged or in any way mentioned within policy, then that was not going to be acceptable. So if you look back about 2010, you will find several papers by the World Bank regarding engagement of diasporas. And why is that the case? Because, for example, in Kenya in 2017, foreign direct investment was about a little over $600 million. Diaspora remittances were north of $1.8 billion. So when we are talking about how do we want to be engaged with BBI, and the only thing you see, as the previous responder mentioned, the only thing you see has got to do with money. That is because that was a requirement that was set forth by international organizations that have significant influence. And what that tells me is that perhaps the question is no longer engaging directly with the Kenyan machinery, but rather a question of getting consensus and support from international organizations that actually wield power in Kenya, even though we don't think they do. Because in order for there to be a diaspora policy, they actually came, this had to be brought to the face of Kenyan politicians by them. And can we continue to have the same conversations 8 years later? I kid you not. This is exactly the same conversation that we had. Oh, and by the way, just as an FYI, as Kenyans, yani sisi wa Kenya reja reja, we were never supposed to be engaged in the diaspora policy as stakeholders. We were simply supposed to be recipients. We were never supposed to provide feedback, but there was a member of the foreign core who decided that it did not make sense to talk about it being a comprehensive process without including the very people that the policy was going to be designed to impact. And so it is one person who broke rank and ultimately paid with their career. But this is why we now were able to insert the question of diaspora voting, because the original policy did not mention anything about diaspora voting. It was indeed a copy and paste of the diaspora policy for India, with some insertions from what China considers diaspora. But we, at this point, while I am greatly encouraged to hear that we're still seeking to have meaningful conversations, the same things we're talking about today, the same things that we talked about in 2012. How do we move this needle forward? And it seems to me that as Kenyans, even with our diaspora remittance power, we are not able to move this forward without some meaningful influence that is external. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Muthoni. And I'll give back to, yes, Chairman. Sorry, Hamid,
Yeah.
Abeka, I'll come back to you.
Okay. No, I think, Muthoni, you have mentioned something very important, which I wanted to respond to, and perhaps to also the other comments from the others. I can say that I'm among maybe the public officials when I was in office who tried to engage the diaspora as much as possible. I was very much available to see any country I went to. I was always engaging with the diaspora. I'm not sure whether that is the case today. But coming back to the issue of the diaspora remittances, the argument I've had in government is that this money is going to their families, to their mothers, to their fathers, to their parents, to their siblings. It's not coming to the Kenya government revenue base. And so that is something which I have heard in government, that, well, even if they're giving us a lot of money, it's not actually coming to the government, and the government cannot tax or get some taxation benefit from diaspora remittances. But of course, they appreciate that the money is coming to the Kenyan people, and that's now being used to invest in the country, and hence the economy of the country is actually benefiting from the diaspora. So, but the point I want to ask all of you is this then: what is the consequences of ignoring the diaspora? What is the penalty that we pay as a country if we ignore you? what punishment do we suffer as politicians, as political leaders, as government, if we ignore you the way we have ignored you? That, I think, is a question that you have to ask yourself. If every diaspora is very keen and they say, okay, we are going to show that we have power. We have got this number of families we are supporting and organizations in the country. We are going to actually involve them and ask them and give them directions on how to vote, on how to punish a political leadership, which is ignoring us. Unless there's something else that you can do, as Mudon has said, this conversation will just keep on coming back like a broken tape recorder. Thank you.
Wow, I've actually learned something new from that. We have the power, so we actually need to use it. And because what you just mentioned now regards to the money is not really coming directly to the government, but it is actually, because even as we send it to our family, they're using the money in Kenya. So it's still developing Kenya as it is. So I think that on itself is so irrelevant for the government to even think that. Just because it's not going directly to someone's pocket in the government doesn't mean that we're not contributing to the development of our country. So Lydia. I know I wanted to, Abeka has had his hands up, but I've not given opportunity to Langat first. So Langat will say something first, and then Abeka, I've skipped you twice. So Abeka will come next.
Thank you, Lydia. And most importantly, we are learning.
Guys, can you close the door for me?
We are learning every day. Today, I learned that perhaps the BBI report that I've been reading is the wrong report. In fact, I want to say that the BBI report that I've been reading, I downloaded from the Daily Nation website. But like my chair, Kanyaru did mention, we've tried as much as possible to peruse through the document to see the section on dual citizenship, and we didn't see a single line on it. In fact, we appreciate that the first report, and we appreciate that the second report was validating the first report. But we would like to make a request to Chairman Isaac to share the report that he has so that we can read, and perhaps that would be close to accurate, because I believe he mentioned that the report he's reading is the report that was handed over to the President and the Prime Minister in Kisii. So we will be close to being true. Secondly, the narrative that the diaspora doesn't play a big role in Kenya is very clear to the political class. In fact, it doesn't need anybody to inquire and find out how, but they have never appreciated this. I work partly in the UK government nowadays since I moved from the university, and we run projects around Africa. And as they always say, charity begins at home. My first two projects that I was running were in Africa, in Kenya, to be specific. And the amount of money that we channel there to try and improve the livelihoods of the Kenyans is in millions. And many times we ask the local governments or the national government to engage with us while we are doing this. And I don't know whether this is the nature of Kenyans. Unfortunately, I didn't work in Kenya for a very long time. I only worked full-time for 6 months in a parastatal. But whenever we expect you go with very important guests from the UK, you're carrying a lot of money, not necessarily in cash, but of course in kind and in ways of helping. And these people are never there. So I've seen, if they are not physically there, when you're actually taking goodwill, how can they be there on paper? And this is exactly what we are seeing in the discussion. Like Chairman Kanyaru did mention, we made a raft of ideas. One of them was to treat the diaspora as a special interest group so that we could see possibilities of having Kenyans who are based abroad being nominated into parliament. And we hope that there is going to be an opportunity so that we could still agitate for this. In fact, we did mention that we wanted to have a diaspora commission, and the diaspora commission to be run from a Department of Diaspora Affairs. But all these were not even factored in. In fact, when you read the second report, Isaac, you will see that the diaspora is completely ignored, other than the fact that they are looking at the remittances. But what I wanted to appreciate today is we have learned a lot from you, and we hope we'll have more time in the next weeks for you to join us so that we can be able to listen. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you very much. So I'll give this opportunity now to Abeka. And then I'll ask Dennis to read. We have so many comments. I'll ask Dennis to read them after Abeka. We hear from Abeka, and then Dennis, you'll have to read some. Not everything, please. Just pick some few. And
okay.
Yes, Abeka.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. One of the things I was going to mention, and I think I've been taken over by Muthoni, mentioned very well, is the diaspora policy, that it was not given to the Kenyan one diaspora, but they fought for it, and it's a sad situation. But Isaac, former chair, mentioned something which is very important, that what can we do to the government to hear or to know our presence is here? I think it's very simple. If we go back to the political alienations and all that, when there is something which is to be discussed, which affects the diaspora, we sometimes tend to forget, and then we go back to our political cocoons. And if you remember, like last week, there was discussion about Tanga and all that, but we forget that the document or whatever it is that is happening affects you as an individual, and vis-a-vis it will go back to the people who might be in need of something from you, or people rely on you to get support from. So sometimes we are our own enemies, but we might not see it in a bigger perspective. So we will find that we are divided when the talks or opportunities like this come into the picture. But I would like to ask a question, maybe to the chair, that, okay, we assume there might be some ceasefire, the reggae has been stopped somehow, so maybe there will be some discussions around the BBI. How can the diaspora now push more to be listened to in the BBI report, as much as before they, maybe if there will be a referendum, because that is also discussable at the moment, whether it's going to be a referendum or it's going to be through the act of parliament. How can we push our voices to be heard? I think that is the most important question we can ask right now at the moment, because we have been ignored mostly, yes, and you find sometimes we have the embassies around in all these countries, but even right now, it's like political rallies. They need you when they want you there, but when you need them, they are always not there. You find politicians, they will come with bodyguards and all that, but when everything is done and you have voted them in, you are locked out. So the question will be, how can we be heard, and how can we catch up the train, as much as they say the train has left the station? Thank you.
Thank you. Chair?
Yes.
Chair, before you answer that, I think you should just write it down, because
Yes,
I want to
okay.
give the chance to Muthoni as well, who has hands up. And then after Muthoni speaks, then we can come back to you, Chair. Yes, Muthoni, you had your hands up.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I was just going to reiterate what Chairman Isaac Hassan has already said, which is there's a central question that I think we need to make sure we address. What are the consequences for the government when they ignore us? Because when in order for a politician, an elected official, to pay attention to you and your needs, there has got to be a sense of consequence. And you can clearly see it in all elections around the world. Most recently, here in the United States. So when we are debating how we want to be engaged, or even asking to be engaged, I think we need to take a different posture and not ask to be engaged, but demand to be engaged. We are Kenyans. It is our constitutional right to be engaged. And at the same time, it is our constitutional right to be represented. And that representation is clearly marked out in the existing constitution. So as opposed to trying to figure out how do we get engaged, once again, what is the consequence for them ignoring us? And as it has become rather clear, there is no consequence whatsoever, which is why they can include us to some extent in an initial draft of a document and then completely remove us in the second and final draft. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mudoni. Thank you. So, Chair, over to you, please.
Yes, I think what I will advise is that apart from first, I will send to the convener the copy of the BBI report that I'm reading myself, and the one that I have. I hope it's the correct one, but I said that when they actually draft and publish the bills, the constitutional amendment, that's going to contain everything that is going to be voted on. That's when you will actually know whether everything that was captured in the report that you have seen was left out. So I think we have had discussions that, and William Ruto was saying that let's try and go for a no contest referendum, or rather an opposed referendum. It may be very unlikely to go that way, but I think it's worth trying. But what can you do as a diaspora? I don't want to sound like I am inciting you, but I think engaging with the political leadership is very important. Some of you are very influential in your own way. I know that because some of these political leadership, when they come to your countries, they actually look for you to help them set up their meetings or raise funds for them in their campaigns. So I think first is engaging the political leadership. Two, maybe media engagement. Right now, people are issuing press statements and press conferences left, right, and center. Pastoralists are against BBI, or the clergy is against BBI. So if you can get a headline to say diaspora is against BBI, or is concerned against BBI, or is threatening to mobilize support or mobilize opposition against BBI, you will get the attention, I think, of those that you need to engage. And I think finally, after the bills are published, perhaps you can also then, if you're unhappy with what you see there, is to do take legal action. There are several public interest litigations which you can engage in. And I think as a Kenyan citizen, you have every right to then complain once the draft bill is published. Although I suspect that you will not go very far with that one. But there's no harm in, for example, getting someone like Okia Tata on your side to go to court and even argue that you are being denied your rights. So there are many, I think, medium in which you can use to push for you to be heard.
Thank you very much. I think today of all the days, I've actually learned a lot, and I've gained so many experience today. Thank you very much, Chair. And now I'll go to Dennis. Dennis, I hope you have the questions that you need to read. Not everything, Dennis, because there's too many. Just pick few and read so Chair can answer them, or anyone can actually answer them.
Okay, there is Sue Arundungu who is saying BBI is not worth supporting. It is uncourtly. I don't know why she says that. The others, Newman, I don't believe that.
She said it's actually ungodly.
Ungodly,
said,
yeah.
She said,
yeah. I was trying to find a better way to say what she's saying, but
just say the way it is, the way she's written, because it's not from you, it's from her. So just say exactly what she's saying.
Okay. You promise I will be safe.
Yeah.
BBI is not worth supporting. It is uncourtly. The others are inhuman and do not care about Kenyans. They should never have been in office. How can they ever explain wanting to spend so much when Kenyans are dying in the middle of a pandemic like COVID? And then there's Joseph Biengo. He's saying good conversation, keep it up. But he said somehow there was a wrong button. If someone touched the wrong button, I don't know who that person is.
Yeah, I think
And
because
then
when we were talking, somebody touched the wrong button because that was written a long time. Okay.
and then there is Joshua Miliwu. He's saying, aha, you can still have built your country in diaspora without even a separate ministry. I don't know if it's that possible. BBI is an idea whose time has come, and it may not be perfect and correct, but then let us try it, because most of the parts of the BBI is for posterity.
Yeah, it's
And then
peace.
there is
I think that is somebody who is for the BBI, which is also good to see, because we are not here, we are not against BBI, we're just saying that we've been excluded. But we have people who are so much against BBI, and that's just their views, that's their perception. So they're allowed to have that, okay? So also have a Langat as well. Langat will help you read the other questions, but just read the question, not a comment, because some of them are just comments or people's views, which we can all go and read later, but I just want questions because I need those questions answered. Okay, so Langat, are you there to also pick up some questions? Just questions, not comments.
Yes,
or...
I'm here. If you give me a second or two to log into my laptop, I'll come back. All right.
I will go on with the question from Ojong John Mark Odalanga, who says, you guys can't raise issues. How do you come in the tail end of process and begin lamentations?
Yeah, well, that's his view. That's my question. That's the view. He doesn't want us to come and lamentate about BBI. That is somebody who is for.
Yeah, he's saying we are coming at the end of everything and we are lamenting.
Hmm. And someone in Russia also said, I love your argument, Mudhoni. The diaspora policy of 2010 actually covers most of what is being highlighted here. It's just not been implemented. So again, like Chair said and Mudhoni and everybody else said, we need to find a strategy of how whatever we're talking about is going to be implemented. Because if this has been discussion from 2010 and today is 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, and we're still discussing this, then we need to find a strategy of how it's going to be implemented. So
Lydia,
yes, I have.
here.
Okay, go on. Langat, before you go on with the questions, I just have Mudhoni with her hands raised. So Mudhoni, if you say what you want to say first, and then Langat can read only questions, Langat, no comments or views.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I wanted to give just a little bit of background so that we can understand why and how the diaspora policy came about to what it is today, at least from my perspective at the point that I was engaged. So at the time that it became clear that there was this policy that was being discussed and we were brought in by the individuals who did, we then began to reach out to other Kenyan communities around the world. So we sent out emails, and of course, technology then was not what it is today, only 8 years, but a huge difference. But we reached out to various Kenyan communities around the world, Australia. We heard from folks in the Middle East. We even heard from folks in South Africa. But we had a lot of contribution. So it wasn't just an engagement that was US centric. We actually heard from a lot of people and we kept trying to push to hear from more, but we did not begin to engage with it until I think it was February. And we had until April to collate all comments, propose what our changes to the draft were going to be. and submit those so that they would actually go to Parliament. Now, for myself, just as an FYI, I am a private citizen. I am engaged in regulatory affairs in the United States, not in Kenya. And I have absolutely no weight when it comes to political ambition or interest in that regard. So I was not engaged at the time, and even now, not engaged as a person who has an interest in gaining or so on and so forth. It's just that one of my passions is policy, ensuring that policy is covering all stakeholders with a level of inclusivity and equity. So I would encourage all of us to take a moment and look at that policy, because when I tell you it was like pulling teeth, it would not even be presented in Parliament at the time that it was written, because parliamentarians did not want to include the diaspora. We were even arguing on the question of the word progressive, because if you look in the Constitution, diaspora political engagement has a very interesting word right before it, which is progressive, which is why, like what Chairman Hassan said earlier, the initial election that was conducted that actually included Kenyans outside of the Kenyan boundaries was just East Africa. So that was step one in progressive. Step two in progressive was now to include all Kenyans in Africa. But then we were also asking, why are we so slow in implementation when approximately 50% of the countries in Africa facilitate diaspora voting around the world? Number one. Number two, we know, and this was a famous argument we got, which is Kenya is a very small economy, we don't have the money. Well, look at Senegal. Senegal, which was one of our greatest go-tos at the time, in 2012, I believe, or 10, Senegal had an election, and they had 50 polling stations in the United States alone. So that meant that it is very doable, but it's just a question of the political will to actually do it. And I think what, for me, made it very clear is when President of Rwanda, Kagame, was in China, and he cast his ballot in China for his own election in Rwanda, for the Rwanda presidency. So when we hear the arguments always being given back to us, it is a very well rehearsed argument. These are things that they already know that when they say to us are meant to make us be quiet. For example, what Hassan raised earlier, which is that, yes, diaspora is sending all this money, but it's not helping the government because there's no taxation, which is a typical argument. No taxation, no representation. But that is not codified in any of the international agreements that we are signatory to, or even within the Constitution itself. Because the Constitution does not say that we have to pay taxes in order for us to vote. Because if that is the question, then every person in Kenya who is presenting themselves to cast a ballot should then bring their tax bill. So why are we then being asked to pay a tax in order to show that we are actually eligible to vote? Na kwa haya machache nitakunywa chai yangu tu.
Sawa, asante sana. So, John,
Yeah.
before I come to you, can we just read the questions, ask questions on the forum, because they're getting too many and we need to at least let people know that we are actually listening to them as well.
Yes, Lydia, I'm here for that. But firstly, allow me to acknowledge the president in the House of Wakili Kiprotich Cherargei, Senator for Nandi County. He's saying he's following, and I believe we would love to have him on board one time. There will be two questions so that I don't spend a lot of time. But of course, I acknowledge the questions and the comments that come from the Kenyans who are listening to us. It seems to have been a very popular topic today. But I want this question to go to Isaac, and this is to do with Diaspora Commission. So somebody is asking, I think we did mention when we went around the UK, some Kenyans here did mention creation of a Diaspora Commission. So somebody is asking, what would be the mandate of the commission? And in this case, I want to flip the question to Isaac on, for example, we have heard about the creation of the Youth Commission, whether he has some information about that. In the same way we could have a Diaspora Commission, is the same way the BBI report proposes creation of the Youth Commission. So I would like in that front, Isaac, to discuss something about the Youth Commission. Secondly, it's about representation of women and the vulnerability. This is from Namelokai saying, and is this captured in the proposal, the representation of women? I know Isaac had mentioned this before about elective position, but I'll send that back to him. And somebody's asking, how do you choose? Okay, well, anyway, I believe this is somebody who should send a question to you, Lydia, so that you can be able to get him understand how you select the people to join this panel. But one thing that I want to mention is everyone or most of the comments are appreciating the fact that we have had Ahmed Issa Hassan today here, and that we've discussed informatively about the issues that he has touched. So if we go back to him with those two questions on the Diaspora Commission in reference to the Youth Commission that has been mentioned by the BBI report, and the issue of vulnerability of women. So while he answers those, I can look for another one or two that are tangible, and then I can bring it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I know Alois has a question for Chair, but before Alois, I want John Kanyaru first, because he had his hands up. So John Kanyaru first, and then go to Phil, and then Balozi.
Thank you, Lydia. I think I want to commend Chair Ahmed Hassan. You have challenged the diaspora that what can we do to be heard? And I think this discussion we are having today, and we have had it for the last few weeks, to me, it is a point of departure where we have diaspora to start engaging and sharing ideas so that we can be seen that we are interested. I tell you, apart from this particular forum, maybe there is no any other. So they think diasporas probably, they don't have anything probably to participate. However, one of the risks that a nation will experience is the moment you talk about inclusivity and nobody is taking diaspora seriously, or they are being pushed aside, the initial intention of that BBI is not captured. Look at this. Down the line, diaspora will become less engaging, slowly disconnect, because it's not a must they continue engaging with our country. And it will take patriotic leaders to know that so far diaspora are contributing to 80 billion. What if, and this is what if, could they be giving 400 billion if they have been engaged at a, or rather they feel more engaged? Let's not settle for 280 billion. Last time I asked one question. We went to China to borrow 380 billion for SGR. What if we had a diaspora bond whereby diaspora will be called upon to build that railway? That would have been a more nationalistic approach than a dismissive one of saying probably, and I think that's what I'm getting. There are people who say, what can they do? Anyway, I'll send money to my mother anyway. That is a very dismissive and patriotic and progressive view of a population that can help build the nation. We don't want to slide into where diaspora are feeling frustrated. We had a case, I think in one of the European capitals, where a minister in Nigeria or a senator came to seek medical treatment abroad, and he met diaspora who attacked him, although he was sick, because they are frustrated. Those are some of the direction that we don't want to see people becoming so annoyed with their leader, because majority of the time, leaders come here and diaspora, maybe we have become flower girls. We go there, we are promised things, and nothing is followed after that. They are becoming increasingly frustrated. And we don't want, you cannot build a nation with a frustrated 4 million people outside the nation. These are the people who talk about, or rather who promote tourism. Every time I meet Anan Kenyan, and they are thinking about going to Africa, and I think that's exactly what, anyway, all diaspora, these are ambassadors. So my biggest concern, and this is, I'm just about to end, politics, because I've vied for a political seat. It is to take advantage of emerging interest. If the government is developing cold feet with diaspora, how about even opposition grabbing this opportunity to champion and talk on behalf of the Kenyan diaspora? Unless the government is threatened by the diaspora and the opposition at the same measure, then we are at crossroads. We are on ourselves, and we need to continue pushing, or rather making more noise. And I appreciate your challenge, so that at least our views can be taken on the table. Thank you, Lydia.
John Kanyaru, you're forgetting the 280 billion doesn't go to the government's pocket. It goes to your mom and your dad. And the funny thing is the exchange rate of that 280 billion is a lot of money, and that goes to the government. So I don't know if it was going straight. John, I can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm saying a rejoinder of what you have just said. I mean, yeah. My background is not economics, but I know one thing. When money of that magnitude land, it is benefiting the economy indirectly, whether it goes to my mother and tomorrow he employs a house girl, that by a young person has gotten a living out of it. So that money in somehow it's supporting even the shilling. I remember Zimbabwe was said to have survived through the dollar that was landing from diasporians during the whole crisis. So let nobody demean the 280. And what I'm saying, maybe by engaging diaspora, we will be having 500 billion, which will help develop our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go to Phil before I go to Balozi. Phil, is there?
I think I had already typed my question. My worry is the process we are arriving at. The process they are pushing this BBI program or BBI route to change the constitution. Is it legal? Is it legit? Because my understanding for constitution to be changed is like people have to ask for it. Then we go through all the other processes, and then you give people something. The way this one is being approached and the way it's being forced to Kenyans, it brings the issue like, is it a legal process? Is it the right route? Or what is the right route? And supposing it's not the right route or it's not the legal route, then what recourse do we have? Because that might be the only technicalities we have to start looking at how to stop the BBI.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil. Now I'll go to Balozi. Balozi, please.
When you listen to the lamentation of Muthoni and the team that has been there too, in terms of the drafting of the diaspora proposals to both the 2010 Constitution and now the BBI, and the general disappointment by all of us in the diaspora, then you listen to the response that Chairman Hassan has given, and the question that he's posed: what is the consequences of the diaspora being ignored by the government? Then it leaves you with very simple answers on what we ought to do as the diaspora. For me, my 2 cents is that a time has come that there has to be a shift in the manner in which we are approaching or begging us to be not only be engaged, but also to sit on the table with our government. We are not asking for anything from the government. What we are asking is inclusivity. What we are asking is our views to be heard. What we are asking is the equity by the government and systems of governance to the 48 constituency of the diaspora. We have failed to achieve that through our draft proposition, number one. We have failed to achieve that through our leaders, who, for people like us who have been around the block since the 2007 campaign, whereby we supported these political leaders, Raila and Kibaki and all those people who ran for office. Yet immediately they negotiated for the government of Nusumkate, the diaspora that fully funded or largely funded their campaigns was nowhere to be accommodated in terms of those appointments, in terms of those consultations. I will say the only person who we managed to get from the diaspora was Miguna, but look where he ended up. So this is my call, a call for action, in rejoinder to what Mvoni clearly articulated here and what Chairman has articulated. A time has come that the diaspora need to shift from the Zoom meetings and keyboard disappointments for us to pack our bags and through the KDA and like-minded groups in the diaspora to say, let us have some of us to go back to the ground and seek audience, not only to the leadership in Kenya or the president in himself, but diaspora has to make sacrifices and take a part in the process of vying for elective positions. We cannot continue to play the ball game from the stalls while we are lamenting at the highest, our highest pitch of our voice. We must now seek to vie for those positions and push for the change agenda within the August House or within the Senate or within the State House. I think that is the time when our voices, our lamentations will mean something. And with that having been said, I wish to express my sincere condolences for all those Kenyans and healthcare practitioners that we have lost and we continue to lose through this terrible, terrible pandemic, whereby we don't even have sufficient supplies of PPEs for our professionals to be able to care for our people. Yet the echo for BBI is at the peak. What a misplaced priority for us as Kenyans and our leadership. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go back to Langat. Okay, before Langat, let me go to Abeka because we're running out of time. So I'll go to Abeka or Abeka, let me leave you because I'll give everybody time to finish, to say their last words. I think I will let you say what you want to say then. But I'll go to Langat if there's any questions, Langat. I can see there's a lot of things, but I know there's questions there, Langat. So if you can read them, please.
Lydia, most of them are comments, not quite questions. So most of the comments are really people expressing their displeasure that the government up until recently were discussing the taking forward of the BBI. And one of them, if you allow me to read, was saying just about 2 or 3 minutes ago when Balosi was talking that it's not time for BBI. They are concerned that Kenyans are dying, that they don't have housing, that they don't have food, or even how they will make ends meet, and that Kenya government should focus on the needs of Kenyans and not BBI. And they were saying the two principles have lost it, that they are just selfish men. But I think I would say, also as closing remarks, I think as a chairman said that BBI proposals or BBI process ought to have started around 2013, and as a nation we would be far. And it's probably better to pause, deal with the pandemic, and also allow consensus, allow people to bring in their thoughts. Even ourselves here in the diaspora, we take in our suggestions, like Joshua Milui is saying, that we are having is using Miguna words. So perhaps maybe PLO Lumumba words, we're talking about unnecessary ululation and discombobulation and artificial plausibility. But one thing that you ought to know is we submitted our proposals from the diaspora. We requested for a few things, none of them, and particularly the critical ones, were not captured. Even in fact, those that were on the BBI 1 proposal were deleted from the second one, that the BBI report that we have seen ourselves. So I believe I'll just reiterate on the two questions I had mentioned on the Diaspora Commission vis-a-vis the Youth Commission. So if the chairman can comment on that, and also on the women issue. So those would probably be critical. Otherwise, we need to appreciate the many comments, and that we believe the traffic has been huge today, Lydia. Thank you.
Yeah. But there's also a question from Harry Kerubo. And I know she's all the way from America as well, from diaspora. She said her question is, at this position during this era, do you guys really think a common Mwananchi will sit down and read a book over 400 pages? Or Begagi, I don't know what that means, but maybe her language, because I know she's from Kisii. So that is a question from Harry Kerubi. Okay, thank you very much, Langat. Thank you so much. Everybody who is watching as well, because yes, the traffic is big today. People asking so many questions. But because of time, I'm going to just I'll give this chance to Chair first to answer those three questions. And then when Chair finishes, and then we'll just have our last say, everybody.
Thank you very much, Lydia, and thanks very much to the other comments from our colleagues. I want to say that when somebody said it's ungodly, he reminds me of the clergy. In 2010, during the referendum, if you recall, the coalition government, the Prime Minister and the President Kibaki were supporting the referendum, but the clergy and one of the Minister Ruto were against it. They were in the no camp, and the clergy actually made a lot of noise against the constitution making process. And I remember engaging with the clergy in 2010 on the referendum process. Karon Karaja, Oliver Seki, Kibarabara, and many others. So I think there's every importance to engage everybody and to hear people out. And when to hold the referendum, I think somebody said that people are dying. COVID is killing our people. Today we lost two doctors. Our kids are all at home. We don't know whether they're going to go to school in January. So there are a lot of issues affecting Kenyans that someone is asking whether it's actually the right time to do this. And I've had people say, some people say that maybe this referendum can be held together with the next election. And you have another separate ballot box constitution that we want to amend. That means taking it away to 2022. But that's something which I think we have to agree on and talk about. Right now, I think the political leadership is not keen to postpone a discussion or debate on this issue. I think it's going to go on. But I think those who are saying that there are other priorities are also justified in that issue. Now, we have engaged with Mudhoni about diaspora vote from 2012, and she knows this engagement we have discussed with her in Washington, in Kenya, in Atlanta, in Georgia, where I went. The cost of the vote in diaspora, they will say, is 5 times more expensive than the ordinary vote in Kenya. If you were to take the amount of money you spend in the election as a country, and you divide by the number of voters that you have, you get what's called the cost of elections per voter. And there's been this agreement that also I've seen that it is 5 times more costly per voter in the diaspora. But again, if we were to look at what kind of election we're going to do using technology and other ways of facilitating the diaspora, maybe the cost will be the same as the cost of elections in Kenya. Now, the Diaspora Commission and the Youth Commission, I think is something which, even without a new constitution, can still be actually established. Remember my earlier observation. You need to build sufficient political goodwill. You don't need a new constitution to have a Diaspora Commission. It can be passed even today. It just requires a law, a Diaspora Commission Act. The same way we have the National Cohesion and Integration Commission Act. So the Youth Commission and the Diaspora Commission, it will be very ionic to have a Diaspora Commission whose commissioners are not from diaspora or have no relationship with the diaspora. So I think even as you try to push for Diaspora Commission, perhaps it is important to understand what will be the scope of this commission and what kind of commission are you thinking about. Thank you.
Chairman, there was something also about the representation of women in the BBI proposal. I know you had mentioned before, but for the sake of the person who asked the question, are you able to repeat that?
Yes, I think it's now settled that somebody in the diaspora can contest for any election in Kenya. That one is very clear now.
Even with dual nationality.
Yes, you can come and contest. So that one is very clear. There's no argument about that. Eh? What I was talking about was actually seats specially reserved for diaspora, where the voters are only the diaspora voters and they vote. Okay, so you have a specific constituencies which are earmarked for the diaspora. I've seen it in Tunisia, I've seen it in Cameroon and the DRC Congo. So it's possible. That's also, I was talking about what are the gains that you can push for in this, apart from seeking nominated seats under the political party list, when they're nominating women, the youth, the disabled, that you also have, as someone has said, a special category of diaspora who are also nominated, one man, one woman, or a youth. That again is another gain that you can push, as well as then having these special seats for diaspora. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing, just someone say, so this pushes me to the conclusion that BBI is a political vehicle to get some individuals to their political destinations. Chair Hassan, does my view make sense to you and other panelists? That is, somebody ask a question, so.
Well, I told you that I was a chairman of the Electoral Commission before the handshake. And perhaps that when I was chased out of office, it is because, among other reasons, because of announcing Uhuru as the president. And now that there's a handshake, they have come together. I think the handshake will actually come round to even those who have been chased out of office. But I think the point that is raised, there are those who are saying that this is only meant to satisfy individuals. But these individuals, that may be true. It may be true or may not be true, but you cannot ignore the power and authority of these individuals. I am one person who is a victim of the powers of these individuals. So I will not pretend to tell you that that is not true. So we have to find a way of managing all these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyakamuga. I'm sure you've had the answer. Okay, so because of time, I'm just going to go to each one of the panelists to tell us their last view, or no more questions. It's just a view now, because we're not going to answer any more questions. So I'll start with Phil. Phil, please.
I think the reality is Kenyan government and the politicians have shown a lot of contempt with the Kenyans in diaspora. If you look at our even, for example, if you pick a country like, for example, even Lebanon, look at the consular there. He's a Lebanese citizen, not even a Kenyan. So I think what diaspora we in diaspora can start doing is like, we can start doing our kamkunchis in these embassies. For example, if like, for example, a few of Kenyans went to the embassy in London and we made noise there. That is, for us, someone will recognize, okay, the diaspora is not happy with the way the Kenyan government is treating them in the UK. And perhaps the guys in France, I think they had ideas also similar, like coming together. They can do the same in the embassy in France and all that. So I think we can start with the making noises with the embassies which are around us. That would not require us to travel to Kenya, or that will not require us to have fear of getting tear gassed or all that stuff. So that's an easier route we can start by. That's all.
Okay.
And do not tell your people not to vote for BBI, whoever has family in Kenya.
Okay, that's Phil's view. Don't vote for BBI. And we should start our kamukunjis in our embassies in your own country. Okay, thank you very much, Phil. I'll now go to Langat to give us his last view. Langat, please.
Thank you, Chairperson, for this debate, Lydia, and I want also to thank Ahmed Issa Hassan for his involvement today and all the panelists. It's been a great day sitting and listening to the wisdom that everybody who's. I must mention, like Balozi mentioned most of the time, that he's headed to Kitutu. Is it Kitutu Church or is it Kitutu Masaba? One of those, but formerly George Anyona's constituency. I get mentioned as well for so many seats. I haven't woken up to decide which one. I get mentioned for being a running mate for someone in Nakuru County. I get mentioned for being a governor in Kericho. I get mentioned for being an MP in Bureti and MP in Kuresoi South. That shows exactly how my background is rich, and despite the fact that I talk about BBI versus diaspora, I think also the issues that affects our people back at home in Kenya is going to be very important. So I'm going to leave my comments that in the coming weeks we move forward from discussing really how the BBI affects diaspora, but now based on the fact that we have the many Kenyans we send millions or billions of dollars or billions of pounds, can we now discuss exactly how these BBI proposals touch them? I would love to hear, for example, the views of Ahmed Issa Hassan on the executive, the role of the prime minister, the way the prime minister is going to be nominated by the president and cleared by parliament and sacked by the president. So I want to hear how that is, how that compares to the Bomas draft or whatever, Naivasha draft or whatever draft that existed. So I think we will take our battles somewhere. We know what we will do. We will stop engaging with the big people who come from Kenya and leave them to wonder where the Kenyan embassy is in London when they arrive and they try to call us, and whenever we try to call them when they're in Kenya, they don't think we exist. So I think we're going to sit as the diaspora, probably propose a way forward, but most importantly, we will not go down. We're going to make sure that our view is heard, our few proposals are incorporated. So as suggested by Ahmed Issa Hassan, we will try the media very soon as well. So thank you very much. We will keep annoying them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Langat, for that. And from that as well, we should actually, as diaspora, start taking action, stop engaging with these politicians. When they come here, they will talk all rosy, but when they go back home, whatever they promised us, they never deliver. So we as diaspora now should take the stand because we have the power. We just said that today. Thank you very much, Langat, for that. So I'll also go to Muthoni. Muthoni, please, if you can give us your last remarks. Thank you very much, Muthoni.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me in this conversation. Bwana Chairman, always great to hear your point of view and to engage with you. I still remember our initial conversation in Washington, D.C., and I have many pictures that actually have that conversation well recorded. But here's I have a couple of comments. Number one, know your rights. Know your rights as installed and protected for you in the Constitution. And I say that because a lot of what we talk about and what I've heard today seems to indicate that we do not really understand what the Constitution affords us as people in the diaspora. Start there. We need to start there, I think. And so that when we move forward, whether it is a conversation through the vehicle of BBI, which is just a report, or any other avenues that we choose to engage with, so that when we actually sit at the table, we have the backing of the all glorious and all powerful Constitution. My second comment is regarding participation of women. And my question to all of us, all panelists and everyone else listening, is this: why is it that in Kenya today, as we stand up and talk about ourselves as being the shining light of democracy in East and Central Africa, we do not consider women to be leaders of the same proportion as men? And it is clearly indicated in the fact that we have a very special appointment process for women, which then allows the rest of the community, specifically men, to dismiss women and say, "Nyinyi mko na kiti yenu, endeni mkae kwa kiti yenu." Go and talk about women's issues, as though women's issues are not human issues. And why is it that the ministry or the docket that covers women also covers youth, also covers people with disability? Are we, by virtue of women, being considered disabled? And if that is the case, then perhaps we need to rethink how we view women as individuals, not only under the Constitution, but also as a society. I am very grateful that we're having this conversation. I'm very grateful to hear that the conversation that we had in 2012 is carrying forward. What I would also like to add as an anecdote is the 2012 conversation that we had was actually a carrying forward of a conversation from, I think, 10 years prior by a group in Australia. So once again, are we going to keep talking, or are we going to do something about it? Thank you so much for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm so grateful that we are still looking to engage meaningfully in our country.
Okay, thank you very much, Muthoni. And also that, as I got, we should know our rights, especially in the Constitution, and as diaspora, especially, we shouldn't be ignorant, because I think sometimes in diaspora, we're so ignorant about so many things. And we should stand up, take our stand, and we can use any avenue to speak out, to use our voices, regardless whether we're going to use this vehicle of BBI or we're going to use whichever vehicle we're going to use, but we need to speak out and our voices needs to be heard. And Muthoni, I'm actually, because it's only me and you that we are women here today, and earlier on the comments, there's so many people who are asking why are there only 2 women. And I'm so happy that you said what you said. So next time we're here, we're going to have more women here talking about Constitution. So we're going to have more women, because we as women, we need to stand up. We need to totally stand out. So thank you very much, Muthoni, for your last remarks. So I'm going to go to Dennis. And Dennis, please.
Thank you, Lydia, and everyone who've been here, and more particularly to Chairman Hassan. You taught us very many things. Now, what can we do from this point henceforth? We've been lamenting, we've been trying to have this conversation, but we seem not to be getting anywhere. But the question comes back to, where does this government, the current government, putting its resources or thoughts or energy? Some years back, there were some issues about gold suckers, things like that. We saw it was resolved. It was very fast. On 4th October, the government of Japan showed that they could no longer accept Kenyan coffee because of this chemical ochratoxin, which is very easily controlled. Actually, it by improving the processes that coffees goes through between harvesting and processing. And it's something that the government can aid farmers to solve. And coffee is the most important hand of foreign exchange in their country. It's very important. It employs, there are 800,000 coffee growers in Kenya, and it employs a lot of people. It's like the backbone of our economy, not talking of diaspora, of course. But the government has not even said anything about that. And the next thing which is going to happen, some other nations are putting Kenyan coffee into tests, more procedures that they were not being put through before. And the government is not even talking about that. Sorry. And the government is not talking about this issue that's going to cripple the country economically. We are still not talking about the diaspora. When the railway was being created, all that, there was a report that came out just before by a certain foreign media house. I don't want to mention specifically the media house because I confused the two. I don't know which one of them was it. But it was saying that the characteristics of the Kenyan government, because it's focusing more on infrastructure instead of focusing on human issues like development of people, schooling, things like that, the Kenyan government was displaying a characteristics of a corrupt government. And we know what corruption has done to our country. So where is this government putting its energy? Where is this government putting its interest? Not in the diaspora, who is the leading source of foreign exchange now, not in the crumbling coffee sector, which is going to pose a great deal of problems in the country. The health care is broken. There was a very good relationship that was growing between Kenya and Cuba, and the government had laid out a plan that they were going to have some sort of free health care for everyone. And now the NHF are even saying they cannot even cover citizens who are suffering from COVID, or maybe they are not going to cover COVID-related complications. And that's the very reason why we have NHIV in the first place. It's not for malaria, because malaria we can pay from our pockets. So what does this government serve for a foreigner, for a diaspora? What good does it serve for a Kenyan diaspora? And what good does it serve for a Kenyan citizen? I think the government has to recollect itself. It has to focus more on the people, not to focus more on the leaders. I don't believe that this BBI is focused on the people. I don't believe it's focused on the people, including the diaspora, because the document started with 2 people, and I was hoping that it will evolve. It has evolved. It is putting more and more people into the circle, but it's not yet enough. We have issues that we want in this document, and if those issues are not going to be captured, then there are many other issues also that other people in Kenya are saying the document is not being captured. But at the end of it all, the government is going to force its way, take this document through a referendum. Whether we pass the document or not, it's going to cost us money, but the government doesn't care anyway, because it's going to borrow money. It's going to leave us with debt. I think the government has to get serious, more so beginning from this issue of BBI. We need to talk if we need to advance our law so that it can enable us to do the things that we want to do. We are okay with the constitutional changes, but let's inform the people. Let's do things in goodwill. And thank you everyone again. If for the time that we've had, I've really enjoyed it, and it kind of wakes up the despair that we have for our government, and it's a good thing because I know there are some government officials who are watching us.
Yeah, they are. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis, for that. And what I got as well is that the Kenyan government should actually focus on their people rather than the leaders, because right now they're more focusing on the leaders and they're not focusing on even what is bringing the contributing to the development of Kenya, which is our produce and also diaspora. So thank you very much, Dennis, for that. And our next person is Abeka, please. Give us your last remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I really enjoyed. Thank you, Mudhoni. You reminded me of the diaspora. When I was writing my thesis, I remember I did something about the diaspora and check it out. So I will reach out and ask you a few questions later. But there are a few things which we have to accept. I think as Kenyans, whether you are a Kenyan in Kenya or a Kenyan in diaspora, we have to accept and know that you are a Kenyan and service is enshrined in the constitution. You have to get it. We sometimes like mediocrity. You are a Kenyan before you become a diaspora. So whether you are in diaspora or you are a Kenyan, you are protected by the constitution, and we need services. We need, it's our right to get the services. And sometimes I think we also have this tendency of mediocrity. We like to accept things a half baked. And I've seen it in many cases. For example, when politicians came here, they come here, instead of engaging them in a very constructive way, we are kind of, they are gods. We feel like some gods have come to Europe and now we are around them. They buy us drinks and all that, and then they go back, they write their reports and all that. We have seen politicians coming in diaspora for benchmarking. For example, here in the Netherlands, I do see a lot of politicians. Sometimes we are being called that they are here for benchmarking on water management and all, and waste management. Well, when you go back to Nairobi, you see what is happening and all that. So let's not accept mediocrity. Let's hold our leaders. Let's hold the institutions that they can deliver. And let's, as Mudhoni said, let's know our rights. They are enshrined in the constitution, and we are not requesting, but rather we are demanding for proper service delivery. I thank you, everyone, and I wish not to take too much of your time.
So thank you very much, Rebecca. And for that as well, I know you said it's our right to be served, and let's demand for proper service. And also let us not be a mediocre. We shouldn't be mediocre. And I know what you said when the politicians come here, we run at them, sit on their feet, and then when you go to Kenya, they totally ignore you, and whatever you guys discussed is chucked in the bin, because they've gotten what they wanted. So guys, let us not be, we shouldn't be mediocre. Thank you very much, Becca. Now let's go, I'll go to John. John, please give me your last remarks. Give us your last remarks, John.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I take this opportunity to thank everyone who has contributed. Mine is just very little. I know, Chairman Ahmed Isaac, you mentioned about the cost, obviously, of having diaspora voting might be 5 times higher than a voter in Kenya. One thing that I would want, action speaks louder than words. If there is political goodwill, costs become irrelevant. We had the government sending some officers in this country and other diaspora, the other countries where Kenyans are, for this document called, what is it called?
Huduma
number, reminding me. And when Kenyans were participating into it, they could not believe that the government can come to Mashinani to bring Huduma number, but not to send people here to register Kenyans as voters. That is a double speak. And probably today, because Ahmed Isaac, we love you, you have declared yourself a diasporians, and so you are, because you are working mostly in diaspora, like in Somali. Can we appoint you as our ambassador back in Kenya? Take the document that we have, which I can email you, take to the principal, because you mentioned about the importance of engaging the political class. Obviously, I'm back in the UK. Can we ask you, take this document, take these views, and tell them, when they hear Kenyans debating and criticizing BBI, that is how nations are built, by having conflicting views. These are not Kenyans who are angry for nothing. They just want a better Kenya, where they can lead a better populace that is happy. And we will send you the document, act as our ambassador. I'm sure they will listen to you, because if you want to go and see Baba, His Excellency Uhuru, or William Ruto, who are the kingpin politicians, tell them diaspora are saying something, listen. And finally, can that document be reopened for other views? Let's please not say that it is cast in iron. We are now ready to be heard, and we are ready even to contribute more to our motherland. And I would want to know whether you will take that appointed position of being our ambassador back in Kenya. Thank you very much. And we actually enjoyed your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Kaniero. And I got that as because following what Chair said, political goodwill. If there is political goodwill, then cost becomes irrelevant. They should not just concentrate on what benefits them, e.g. like what they did with Huduma Number. I know they spent so much, but that's because something was going to benefit them, and discussing with us diaspora. And they should also agree, we should agree to disagree. That's discussion. So they should allow us that, at least in diaspora. So thank you very much, John. So I'll go to Balozi. Balozi, please, if you can give us your last remarks. I don't know if we still have Balozi here with us to give us his last remarks. Balozi? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lydia, for the amazing work that you're doing. But I'm going to be very brief. For us to build a Kenya of prosperity and posterity for ourselves and the next generations, we must begin to plan. We must strategize. But most importantly, we must want to engage. I want to thank this team. I want to thank Chairman for the amazing work that he has done, and also Mudhoni and the entire team. But we must continue to engage on these levels because we cannot rest until our concerns and our plights have been heard and have been achieved. So for me, I am taking the battle to the ground. I ask that we continue to pray for one another. And I also, before I finish, I want to ask Chairman Hassan, when is he coming to Kitutu Masaba constituency so that we can mobilize, motivate, and engage the people mashinani about good governance and ensure that they get involved. Asante sana, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Balozi. So I
will take Chairman Hassan's answer through you off air.
Okay, yes, I know. Even the one John asked, I think that should be off air. Thank you very much, Balozi. And if we want a prosperity Kenya for us and for our next generation, we must engage and strategize through engagements. And we must talk until our voice are heard and until whatever we want to accomplish has been accomplished. So I'll go, before I go to Chair to finish, I'm going to go to Bashir. I know Bashir joined us really last, that's why I had to leave him for last. So if he can just tell us his last views or whatever he got from the discussion. So Bashir, all the way from Switzerland. I wonder if he can hear me. Bashir? Okay, he can't hear us. Bashir? Okay, all right then. I'll go, he can't hear us whatsoever.
Are you sure he was in?
He is in there, I can see him. Bashir? No, he can't hear me. Can you hear us? Okay, he can't. Okay, so I want to, he's connecting. Okay, this is called technology. I always say in my language, we say technology. Yes, but it's technology. So technology is hard. We're learning every day.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, I can see him.
Can you hear me now?
Bashir? No, he can't hear. Yes, Bashir, we can hear you.
Yes.
Bashir?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Yes, yes. Hello.
Oh, yes. So what I said is I was taking everybody's last remarks, but I know you came late. So if you have anything to say before we close with the chair, if there's anything you want to contribute or anything you had and you're happy to share with us a little bit before we finish.
First of all, I would like to apologize for being late due to I had some difficulties with my line, and unfortunately, I made it up, but I was following it up in my laptop. So thank you very much, first of all, Lydia, for inviting me, and the rest of the gang which is here. Thank you for all the support and making this discussion quite very interesting. Though the time is limited, I would have loved that we could have continued, but unfortunately the time is not on our side.
Yeah.
I only would like to say that I find the BBI actually being quite of a scam, if I would rather use the language. Sorry about it. But I would really like it that this should be given more out to the people so that the Kenyan citizens can actually decide, and the government should give them time so that they can also hear what the Wananchis have to say on this, because it's a long thing that has to be discussed in a way, and up to right now, whereby where it has reached, it's a question of asking, has the BBI captured the interest of Kenyans in the diaspora? So this is a question that would take some time to discuss and actually come out with the intelligent answers that we are all looking for. But I think we can do better. I think the government should consist of looking into more matters of the Kenyans and the issues that the Kenyans are facing regularly in their daily lives. At the moment, we are facing a pandemic, and I think that should have been the first priority, because we keep on losing Kenyans each day, each night comes in. And I think these issues which need to be looked into first and kept as priorities, something like that. But until now, I'm really, really honored to have been here in the short time. I had a lot to talk about, but unfortunately, I'm given a limited time because of coming late. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for bringing this up. And I hope it's not going to be the last one, and I hope we just push it on and on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bashir, for that. Sorry about your technical issues. And what I got from that was BBI is quite a scam, and it should be given time to Kenyans, both home and abroad, so that they can actually have their views also, because as it is, BBI has not captured the views of millions of Kenyans. And the government has also misplaced its priorities, because right now the priority should be the pandemic, not BBI. Thank you very much. So I'll go to Chair to wind up. And before I go to Chair, I'll just say what Bwana John Kanyaru said. He has started another door of conversation. Somebody said, thank you very much, Madam Chair and everybody else. And they have also officially chosen Hassan as their Kenyan diaspora ambassador. So that is food for thought, Chair. That's food for thought. And I think everybody here, we are in the same, I'm in the same league with John. You should. That's a big food for thought. Okay, Chair, now it's for you to wind up for us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for that excellent facilitation. You have been a very good moderator and convener. I am very much honored to take part in this discussion with all the Kenyans in the diaspora. And I look forward to future engagements. I want to make something very clear. Since I left office in 2017, I have not engaged in any public event, and that was deliberate on my part. I have maintained my role as a former chairman of the Electoral Commission, not to engage in activism. I have been invited, for example, by parliamentary pastoralist members of parliament, the pastoralist groups, to join them and discuss about these issues and other issues before. I've been also been involved by, invited by other groups, but I have chosen to stay out of the political limelight, and I think I want to maintain that. So I will not. I want this. In fact, this is my first time after 3 years in office. I've been out of office that I'm engaging with you guys, even in a public forum. And I think, and this is very good. This one is very, very civil, very interesting, and it is a high level, and I like it. But I have tried to stay away from public limelight. I think we have a chairman in office, and I don't want to second guess or be an armchair analyst against him. So I want to, in as much as I've been offered the job of a diaspora ambassador in Kenya, I want to say I'm still your ambassador in my heart. I will still continue to engage with those that I'm going to engage with. I know the technical team. I know Paul Mangi. I know the other colleagues who are in that team. We will still talk to them about the diaspora issue, but I have to politely decline that appointment. And I hope you're going to understand. Kitutu Masaba, I am very happy to go there anytime. When ambassador comes, the Kitutu Masaba has got the unique distinction in Kenya of having the highest number of parliamentary contestants in Kenya. Always. The ballot paper is the longest, with over 20 names. So maybe that is an example of the democracy in Kitutu Masaba. But I'll be very happy to come anytime. And finally, I think we should continue the engagement. We should continue talking, because the moment we stop talking is when we start fighting. And thank you very much, all of you. Good night.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you that this is your first platform since 3 years ago. That we really appreciate that, sir, for appreciating and accepting our invitation. And for the ambassador role, I think that should be food for thought for you, sir. You cannot just dismiss us like that. And we still stand and say, no, we are still fighting. We will not just accept your dismissal like that, especially on air. So everybody's thinking, wow, food for thought, sir, food for thought. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for today. Okay. And somebody actually said something interesting here, and where is it? Oh, there's so many messages. It says, since it does not concern me, let me air my opinion to car manufacturers to always have horn button in every seat. So, and to acknowledge people along the road, that is to us. So they feel like we've not acknowledged them. So I want to say, and Langat said it already long time, maybe you just joined in now. Langat said it, maybe John Tinwa, you just joined in maybe not too long ago, but Langat had already appreciated every single person who is actually watching, every single person who shared, every single person who commented. And again, I would just like to take this opportunity and appreciate every single person who is watching, commented, liked, and shared. Thank you very much, our viewers, and as we'll say, and thank you very much as well, all the panelists. I'll say thank you very much, Muthoni. That was the last minute and you actually accepted it. That shows the power of a woman. Because if it was a man, they'll still tell me, naenda kwa baku kunywa kidogo, ndafikiria. You did not say ndafikiria, so that's the power of a woman. Straight up, you came. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Muthoni. Thank you for that. That was the last minute. I actually texted her when we were on and she came. So thank you very much, Muthoni, for that. And also, Alois, thank you very much. Phil, thank you very much as well for coming. This is the second time you've been here with us. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Balozi, as well, all the way from America. Thank you, Balozi, for joining us again. And also Langat, thank you very much. Langat is part of KDA, Kenya Diaspora Alliance. So thank you very much, Langat, for joining us. Thank you very much, Bashir, even though you had technical issues, but at least they always say better late than never. So you came, so thank you very much. And thank you very much, Dennis, as well. And Dennis is also a secretary for Kifua, that is a Kenyans in France Umbrella Association. So thank you very much, Dennis. And thank you so much. Our chair is also my chair, actually, John Kaniaru, the chair of KDA. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. He said I shouldn't call him Kubwa, and that's what I was calling him, because for me, once you're a chair, you're a chair forever. So thank you very much, Chair Hamed Hassan, for joining us all the way from Kenya. So I'm going to end this on Facebook, but I would like you guys to still stay behind a little bit if you can. But I'll actually end it on Facebook. So all the viewers, thank you very much. And next time again, let's meet the same place, same time. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching our viewers. Thank you very much. So we'll just say goodbye.
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.